Hello everyone, my name is Jesus Soto from Butler High School, and today I'm going to present to you why Salesforce is the best buy to hold stock. Salesforce is a known global leader and pioneer of the customer relationship management, in other words, CRM, and it has been famous for a Customer 360 platform, which helps businesses optimize their sales, which sometimes by 30% through their Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing and Commerce Cloud, Sustainability Cloud, and many more. Salesforce is also known as having one of the best company culture companies, as one of the best company culture companies in the world, second to Google, and for its innovation. And it was actually ranked as number 6 in the 100 best companies to work for by Forbes in 2020. In addition, it's also being given a rank by Forbes as one of the most admirable companies and having one of the best CEOs. Salesforce is also known for its acquisitions, which are Tableau, MuleSoft, Heroku, Slack, and 60 other acquisitions. The main purpose of all these acquisitions are to continue improving the Customer 360 platform. So the industry overview is that I found that it has a CAGR of around 22.49% from 2015 to 2020. And there's an estimated CAGR of 14.2% from 2022 to 2026. The software as a service and overall the CRM has also been has a leading position in the Americas, and it's rapidly growing. It's a rapidly growing industry in Pacific Asia and Oceania. And as you can see here, Salesforce has a 19.8% market share in comparison to Oracle, SAP, Adobe, and Microsoft, which is pretty amazing. And my investment thesis is that right now Salesforce is currently valued as $218.72 dollars. And it's a targeted price of $256.5, which is a 17.3% upside. In addition, it has really strong revenues with an average growth of 24%. And it's a company that's always continuously innovating through acquisitions, through their teams, and they're always doing their best to make their work pretty safe to the environment. And one of them being through the Sustainability Cloud. In addition, I also believe that they have 3 wide economic moats, the first one being brand, and that's because it is a pretty well-known company that serves really good CRM services all over businesses. Secondly, being high switching cost, which is because since CRM collects a lot of information in their platform, it is really hard to transfer the information from one platform to another. So companies like to stick with Salesforce since it has years and years of information. And also software adoption. And by that, I mean that a lot of companies are now wanting to see potential candidates of having Salesforce experience, which is really a giving good position for Salesforce because it's expanding in that sense, right? The workforce. And for the financial analysis, last year, Salesforce had a revenue of $20 billion with a 1.4% dollars earnings per share. Though it is good to know that the EPS is really volatile depending on the mergers and acquisitions, and of course other reasons as well that I'm going to mention later. The year-over-year growth of Salesforce has been 20% in this last 10 years. And also, which I'm going to show next slide, I used the relative intrinsic valuation analysis, which, yeah, I'll show you in a minute. And something that's actually really good about Salesforce is that it has maintained a really stable revenue during the pandemic. It didn't dip as much in comparison to other companies. And something I also found as well is that Salesforce's short-term assets actually exceed the short-term and long-term liabilities, which shows that they can handle their debt pretty well. And in continuation to that, the debt-to-equity ratio has reduced from 25.6% to 6.5% over the past 5 years, which is amazing. And CRM actually has a really good valuation on the PE ratio in comparison to the software industry average, which is actually 52.5. So that's pretty amazing as well. And as you can see here, I compared Salesforce to Microsoft, Adobe, Oracle, and SAP. And there was an average PE of 34.2 based on those 5 companies. I also decided to do a deserved discount to average to 15%, which helped give me a target PE multiple of 39.3. In addition, I also calculated intrinsic value by projecting for 5 years the revenue, the net income, and the earnings per share, which gave me an interesting value of $256.5. And in comparison to now, which is 218.7, with an upside of 17.3%. And also, based on the calculations of an analyst, there's a 25.4%. I apologize for keeping saying percent. There's a $25.4 billion revenue expected by 2022 with the acquisition of Slack. But of course, every business has their own investment risks. And this one, of course, being one of the strengths is the acquisitions. And there was a concern that Salesforce overspent on Slack, but that's something I'm going to talk about a little later based on what I found with somebody that I met. But there's also, again, as I mentioned, there's like over 60 acquisitions, and many people fear that future acquisitions are going to be overspent because right now the platform is so complex that really for it to keep innovating is going to keep a lot of work. But that's not too big of a risk, or well, it can be sometimes. Salesforce is also in a really competitive market because it compares with Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, and other companies such as HubSpot. It compares with a lot of technological companies that are always fighting for market share. So that's one of the risks for sure. So they're going to have to keep innovating, otherwise they might go down in market share. And the third one kind of applies to a lot of technological companies, which is the technology industry. The price can be really volatile due to it being historically volatile. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, the acquisitions and the earnings per share may be volatile, the cash flows, it all depends. And of course, it depends on the company's performance and overall the whole technology industry's performance and the markets. So I actually did interview a sales development representative, and I asked him 2 questions because we didn't have a lot of time. The first one being, what does Salesforce do to stand up amongst the competition? He said that's something that Salesforce does, that they always present the product in a consultative nature. And I actually experienced that because when I first looked at the Salesforce.com website, I wanted to see their demos. And it was their email that really got me stuck with them. So I experienced this firsthand. And in addition, they also find it essential for customers to feel comfortable with their product, which is really great. And they've had hundreds of thousands of customers that were working with HubSpot for a year or so. And he said that they moved to Salesforce because their product helps them have an integrative and analytical outlook into the business, which can sometimes improve their, sales by 30%, as I mentioned earlier. And so I also asked him, just out of curiosity, does he believe that this Slack acquisition will benefit the customer 360? And he said that it's not only going to improve their services, but it's also going to give the customer 360 a new aspect that they haven't wanted to implement for so long, which is to have a community for people to talk in, a place for people to communicate. So along, which actually connects to the Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and other services that Salesforce provides. So it's kind of a way for people to work together in companies and at the same time use their services. Just kind of keep in touch, And I also found that in the 2019 graph, these are all the services that Salesforce had at the time and how much they grew year to year. For example, here, Sales Cloud, the Service Cloud, Service Platform, etc. Now, moving on to the revenue drivers, Salesforce main revenue driver subscription and support, which covers 94% of the company's total revenue, which makes sense because that's how they get their money. They get their money out of businesses subscribing to certain parts of the customer 360 or the whole thing. In addition, they also have professional services, which only cover 6% of the company's total revenue, but that's because the professional services are just people from the company that help others understand how to use Salesforce. They help them understand the functions and other things that can integrate their business into the platform itself. And of course, another revenue driver is the acquisitions and mergers, because if they make acquisitions that can actually benefit their customer 360, it can bring up the revenue drivers, just as expected with Slack. And of course, here is the leadership. So the main leader, of course, is Mark Benioff. He's the CEO, founder, and chairman of Salesforce. He was also named Innovator of the Decade by Forbes. And he was the youngest vice president of Oracle by the age of 26. He also worked with Steve Jobs, and he created the App Store, which proved to be a really innovative and one of the revenue drivers of Apple. And right now, Salesforce also has something really similar called App Exchange, but it's just between businesses that work like third-party vendors that help the platform by giving other businesses extra services that they're providing. He was also the creator of the 111 model of philanthropy, which a lot of companies are starting to implement. And second to Mark Benioff is Brett Taylor, and Brett Taylor is the president and chief operating officer of Salesforce. He was a co-founder, the co-CEO of Quip, and he was also the chief technology officer of Facebook and was credited with the invention of the like button. Along with he was also credited as a co-creator of the Google Maps when he worked at Google. And Ryan Aitai, which is also has actually worked with Brett Taylor. He's the chief business officer of Salesforce. He was the co-founder and the co-CEO of Quip as well. And he has established a strategic partnership like with Amazon, Google, Apple, and many more that has helped Salesforce grow as a business. In addition, he was also a founding member of the Salesforce venture team. And something that I didn't add here is that Salesforce actually has 8 out of 11 independent directors, many being, I think it was the director of Hasbro. We have the CEO of YouTube and many others that are really experienced and have really good qualifications. And yeah, that is my presentation for now. But thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing day, and goodbye.